So we were preparing to invade Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
with
we
the-
were
yeah,
getting.
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say, that you had prepared yourself to go in.
Yeah.
And at one point you told me that, it wouldn't have ended well because either the Americans would have been demolished or the Japanese would have been. And that there's no question that the bomb had to be dropped to end it.
Yeah, and they sent out all new engines for our LCMs and VPs, and the group I was in would have been among the first to go.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Were you of legal age to join the military?
Yes,
Just barely?
yeah.
Are you fibbing? I
Well,
thought-
he was
I
the
thought you
old
altered your
man of
age.
it.
What?
He was the old man of his unit, because he, 22, 32, 42.
Oh,
He, well, crossing the equator, I just read, was in 43, so it wasn't
okay,
immediately when the war started.
okay.
Yeah, and, he had younger people, a lot younger people, you know,
Mhm.
18 and 20 years.
Most of the people I had, there was one fellow older than I,
Oh, yeah.
and otherwise it was kids just out of high school.
But wasn't there something about your physical that you almost didn't pass or something, Dad?
Yeah,
To
right.
get in the military? What's that story? Remind me?
For the Navy at that time, when I enlisted, you had to have a full mouth of teeth.
Okay,
And I had two missing down here. So I couldn't, I passed the exam, and the last thing they did was my teeth. And when they saw I only had those two missing, that ended the three of us went down together and enlisted, and the other two guys passed, and I passed everything except I didn't have enough teeth, so I came home and had the dentist put in a bridge from the back tooth to the first one here. Went back in, because I asked them what I had to do to get in, and they said, grow some teeth.
I got dentist contacts.
So I came home and
Got some
had the
teeth.
dentist put in a bridge, and all I had to do was, as I've often said, pee in the bottle, and I got in because I'd already passed the exam.
sure.
And it was only a couple of weeks later that I went in.
Did you keep the bridge in once you got in?
Yeah, I had it until about 20 years, well, less than 20, probably 15 years ago when the back tooth went bad.
Did you know any of the people, were there any like Reedsburg people that you knew serving with you in Japan? Or had
No.
you all split up?
I had one fellow from Reedsburg and I were started out in the same
Uh-huh,
company, but we didn't go
Yeah.
overseas together.
okay.
And I was at the University of Idaho, and they asked for 5 people that would go to Los Angeles and go aboard ship, and I volunteered.
5 people.
Because it was all the same mentality as it was at war, and
And
it was happening, and wanting to do everything you could for the country.
and they needed 5 people to fill out this new
Crew.
crew.
Okay. Well, wait, since you were in charge of a lot of the younger ones, tell them what you told them one night when you were going to be doing your landing.
We had in the group, we had 5 guys that had been in the Navy for quite a while, and they were telling the young recruits they had nothing to worry about. And I said, night before knew we were getting close to where we were going. I got the guys on the deck and I told them that it was hard.
And George, go back to a question you asked about, Jake, about how do they feel about the troops, the decision to drop the bomb on Japan, the bombs on Japan or not, or how do they feel about that? One of the interesting things, not far from here is the Truman Library and Museum in Independence. And one of the exhibits, it's a separate room, it's all about the decision-making to drop the bomb or not. And there's obviously a lot of debate on that. But one of the things that you can do as a visitor is they keep a journal going there, and you can sign in and people will comment about whether it was a good decision or a bad decision, what have you. And I would tell you that this is anecdotal, but feeding through it over a period of time, it seems like the overwhelming majority of people say it was a good thing. And there's also the viewpoint says, you know what, it unleashed the nuclear world that we're living in now. But, I give a lot of credit to President Truman for making that decision. But what all his experts were telling him that, we lost 450,000 people in World War II, and they were looking at double that. Double the entire World War II death if they had to invade the Japanese homeland. And that was an easy decision then. We're not gonna lose twice what we've lost in the war just trying to take Japan. But that's pretty interesting. Another anecdotal story, we were taking a tour in Hawaii one time called the Home of the Brave, and our guide talked about the decision, why was the surrender ceremony aboard the USS Missouri? And they said, actually that die was cast like the day after Pearl Harbor. President Roosevelt said, when we win, when this is over, we are going to accept the Japanese surrender aboard a United States battleship. And so like the development of the atomic bomb, Truman knew nothing about it. So now he's president. And they let him in about the research. We've developed this thing, this bomb. And they said, oh, by the way, if the bombs are successful and it ends the war, President Roosevelt said back on December 8th that we're going to take the surrender aboard a United States battleship. And of course the light bulb went off and Harry Truman said, he says, and I know just the battleship. So he directed that the USS Missouri steam to get in position to take their surrender ceremony. That's anecdotal, I don't know that for a fact, but it's a heck of a story and I'm sticking to it. I think it's a good story.
Along with that, Dan, when the Japanese envoys landed on Hiroshima, I was up at they let us go up by the airport and we watched the Japanese envoys walk across the airport to get on board the ship, LCM or whatever they used, that I don't recall, to go out to the Missouri to sign.
He was that close.
The
Well, you
amazing
didn't
part-
finish the other
No.
story, so when you took the new recruits that hadn't been in battle, and what you told them, as opposed to what the others were saying, was,
I told them, I said that they had every reason to be scared. There was nothing wrong with being scared. And if you're not scared, I am scared then.
and I thought you also told them, and you won't come back. If you're not afraid, you won't come back. The older ones that had been and were not helping them really.
Right, tell them not to be afraid.
Yeah.
And these young most all of the crew was just out of high school, or maybe not even out.
Mhm.
And so they were 18, 19, few 17 of them. Guys.
Have, many of you been to Branson and gone to the military museum that they have there?
No.
That is phenomenal if you're ever there.
Yeah,
You wanna go, Mom and Dad and I had gone to see some shows, and then we saw that there was this museum. And well, it is self-funded, and every single war has its designated area. The first one was, well, I guess World War I was in the first room, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, so I don't think it had any Civil War in it. I don't recall that there was any. But anyway, we went through that, and I saw the little hats that Grandpa Christopherson's picture showed. And I go, yeah, that's World War I. And then we went in, and there was a lot of equipment and such in here, and there was a uniform over here, and I said, what in the world is that? And it was a soldier that had been captured, and that is the type of uniform that they were kept in concentration camps. And it was familiar to Mom because there were prisoners of war in Reedsburg. And I had never known that.
Yeah.
They had a rack of rifles, and I said, Dad, which one did you like the best? And Mom looked at me like, oh, Linda, why are you asking that? And I just wanted to know if there was, how you felt about things. And he paused, and he said, that one. And I said, why? And he said, because it was the easiest one to take apart and put back together, even in the dark. And then there was the actual World War II room, and it is full of names. All 3 sides or 4 sides had names on it. I think it might have been 4 sides. And they had more than life-size tall statues for each, a military person for each state. And the artist had taken a picture, or used a picture of an actual soldier, sailor, Marine, all down through it. And Dad went over to part of the wall, and he found a couple of the people that he had served with. And he told me that one of them, that the first one that he found, he said, yeah, I wrote his parents and told him that I had been at his side at the time he got killed, and if they ever wanted to know anything, that he'd be more than happy to do a correspondence with them. But they never responded to it. So, but that probably is the most impressive thing I've ever seen in a museum, any type of museum. And at the time, there was one person up on the ladder on the other side of the room making a rubbing. And I think we asked, and I think it was his dad that it was.
I don't know.
It was a really close relative.
That's
Yeah.
far back.
Yeah. And it went through Vietnam, and I don't know how far up it had gone to. You were in Grenada, right? Yeah? Oh, no, okay, yeah. But it
I was over in
kept
Germany at that time.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, yeah, very, very interesting.
So how did you hear that the war was ended? Where were you and how did you hear?
Where was I? I was in Iashima, which is 3 miles off of Okinawa.
Okay, it's pretty much the same place then.
Yeah, and I just was going about my business when I heard it. I was in charge of the equipment that came in on the beach and getting it in there and getting it up where it needed to go, and it just came out by word of mouth.
Mhm.
We knew something when Ernie Pyle was killed.
We had seen too,
The morning that Ernie Pyle was killed, I was equivalent about a city block away at the most. And we knew that somebody had lost their life, but didn't know who, and then by the middle of the afternoon, it started floating around. It was Ernie Pyle.
Mhm.
When you saw the Japanese envoys walking to that LC, did you know why they were there?
Yeah,
Yeah, it was for the surrender.
yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing to me that the Japanese, after we dropped the first bomb, didn't surrender then.
Mhm.
You know,
But that's what Dad, you know, pretty much, if you talked at all about it, it was like, no, they have a different mentality. They do not value life, human life. And it was just, you know, the bombing of the Pearl Harbor. All these, I've read in some of the books that they didn't give them enough gas to get back. That they were supposed to go down with the plane. Yeah, yeah. So it's a whole different mentality.
Well, I think over at the Truman Library, basically, I'm making this not as complicated or less complicated than what it probably was, but the calculus was the Japanese were slow to react in terms of surrender with the first bomb. The calculus politically was they had to be convinced that we had more capability than just the one bomb.
Mm-hmm.
And we really know.
So they thought, okay, you didn't respond after Hiroshima, you got 72 hours, we're gonna drop another bomb. And that was the convincing.
Finally said,
How
oh.
many more of these things
Yeah.
do they have?
Right.
And really, I think that that was it. You know, we could have
Thank
developed
goodness.
more, but all we had were the two bombs at the time.
Exactly.
But we had the technology to produce more, but yeah, that was what convinced them.
well, and isn't it true too that the invasion of Japan was gonna be so catastrophic for us because of all of the civilians
Yeah,
they weren't just going to act as civilians, they were gonna be combatants, they were going to
yeah,
blow themselves up, they were gonna do whatever they had to do,
yeah.
you know. So it wouldn't have been just Jake fighting the Japanese army, it would have been everybody else too.
Sure,
Yeah.
yeah. That's a good museum if you get to come back at a different time, go through that.